Hello, I'm here with Ryan, who's our submissions coordinator for the whole of the festival. And for Curves Day, National Curves Day, we're going to have a conversation about how being plus size in theatre can be really tricky and the problems that often come with it. So Ryan, do you want to just say a bit about yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Ryan. I'm the secretary of Sutco for this year, and I'm an actor director in Sutco. I've done a bit of producing as well. But yeah, I haven't acted in a while, so this is going to be kind of from a totally different perspective to what I would have said probably 3 years ago. But yeah, as you can see, I am plus size, and I'm happy to admit I'm plus size. But yeah, that's me, really, isn't it? You know.
Yeah. So you've been involved in a lot of shows in Sutco. I was also involved in one of them with you, but so I know that the sort of casting process that happened there. But obviously, as we both know, theatre has a very strong set of norms when it comes to casting, and often this doesn't really include plus size bodies, except in what are so-called plus size roles. As a director and also as an actor, can you sort of describe how you've experienced this and what your experiences of it were?
Yeah. So I mean, it goes back to school for me, where I was a funny kid. I've always been a comic actor, and the fact that I've always been bigger, um, has meant that I've always been the funny fat kid in shows, and I was fine with that because I like those roles. And I think that when you're going to see a comedy, that's what you want to see. You want to see a funny fat man sometimes, you know. Um, there have been times where I feel like I haven't been even considered for a role that I can sing well or that I can act well just because of my size. And it's usually romantic leads, um, mainly in musicals. I think, as an overview, I think that from my perspective, when it comes to casting straight plays and musicals, there is more of a stigma than comedies. It all obviously depends on whether they're amateur or whether they're professional, but as a general overview, I find it harder to get cast or taken seriously when it comes to amateur musicals, just because I'm bigger. Also, doesn't help that I can't dance, but we'll skim over that. We'll say it's because I'm bigger. But from my perspective as an actor, I feel like I've never been able to see myself on stage as a romantic lead, which I think, if we're going to go deep 5 minutes in, let's go deep. I feel like it's really hard for me to be able to see myself in a fairy tale relationship, or a relationship where I'm taken seriously, just because in musicals and plays I haven't been able to play those romantic leads. So even though in amateur theatre we're all friends and we all know each other, when you're not put up for a romantic lead in a role, the kind of knock-on effects of that are: do people not find me attractive? Do people not consider me to be good enough to be in a romantic relationship with, and things like that? And I think that's the danger with amateur theatre, that you always find um, yourself too close to the action, um, especially when you're all friends, whether it's university, whether it's at home in a youth group, or just any Amdram group. You all know each other, and when you're constantly put into the box of being the comedy lead and you can't really break through into other genres of acting, you do take it personal. Um, and for me, it made me question my size, and I'm not blaming anyone. We all judge, quite frankly, and I feel like that's a big thing to do with life. Um, we all see. roles however we want them, and we all always want to see ourselves portrayed on the stage. So I've always wanted to be a romantic lead. And ironically, the one and only time I was a romantic lead was when I was slimmer, when I lost a lot of weight. And whilst it was still a funny character, when I did the musical 2 years ago, I was 6 stone lighter. And that now really affects me when going up for musicals, or because I don't audition for musicals anymore. I don't audition for plays. I don't consider myself an actor anymore because I feel like I've done what I want to do as a comedic actor. In the 39 Steps, I was this really big character, like over the top, not physically, because I played lots of different characters. But it's made me realize that I don't want to be an actor anymore because I will never be able to play the parts I want to play. And sometimes that's just life, and sometimes it's a negative attitude towards being bigger and people not wanting to see bigger people in romantic roles. And I think that's the hardest part of the amateur industry.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. As someone who also doesn't really fit the stereotypical mold of a romantic lead, I always find that I'm first of all considered for the only roles I really get considered for are mother, teacher, maid. Are really the three that I get all the time. And if I'm auditioning for a play and there's a mother, teacher, or lead or maid, I will almost always get that role. If I get any. It can be very frustrating to be sort of typecast like that, and to hear it, like, because this is kind of an idealized version of our world in a lot of cases, and an opportunity to sort of step outside of your own comfort zone as someone else. So only being allowed to play certain characters within that, when straight-sized people are allowed to play whoever they want, can be really upsetting.
It's theatre is without being cliche, theatre is an escape for a lot of people, and it is for me, whether that's performing it, watching in it, or just getting involved in any way that I can. So to then have all these red crosses saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, however subtle, just knocks you back and makes you think theatre isn't that inclusive as it should be. Theatre is a place where you can be anyone on the stage as long as you fit the casting role, which is so ironic. We hear all these stories of, like, I remember James Corden at the Tonys did a song about you can be whoever you want on stage, and like they had like a larger child play a young James Corden, and it was the idea that you could play any role you could. But quite frankly, no, that kid couldn't, and that's what's upsetting about it, because everyone in the industry is like, oh my god, it's so inclusive, we're trying to push boundaries and stuff, but we're not, because whenever there's an adaptation of any kind of like a revival of an old romantic musical, the leads look identical near enough in terms of body weight and in terms of gender and in terms of sexuality. I think we're starting in the professional stage to be able to change the way people look in terms of race. I think we're starting to do that in professional theatre. I don't think in amateur theatre. But in terms of size, we'll never have a bigger Jamie New, and everybody's talking about Jamie. We'll never have a bigger Elphaba. You know, it's all these big roles that I'll never be able to see someone of my body type or similar, or just a different body type to what the original cast was on stage. And that's upsetting, because it breaks down so many people's hopes and dreams. But also, why not? That's the question I have. Why not? Why can't we? Because it doesn't change the story, unless in certain roles it does. Like, I just don't get it. It's just because there's such a prejudice surrounding being fat, and you should be ashamed of your body, and you should want to change. But why can't we have a bigger love interest or any kind of character that's, it's just frustrating because there isn't an answer.
But it's not like those people don't exist in real life. Is the frustrating thing, is that it's like reflection. If we sort of say theatre is a reflection of life, it's not like plus size people don't exist. So there really isn't a reason why you should consider it, unless you're just uncomfortable looking as a casting director looking at plus size bodies, in which case that's one of the casting director's problem, or it should be, but it clearly isn't.
Yeah, I mean, I get to an extent, this is not me agreeing with the industry, but I get to an extent that if we opened every role to anyone and we didn't put any restraints on what the actor should look like, audition processes would take ages and ages and ages, and you'd end up missing people out. I completely get the logistical thing surrounding it. But at the same time, why can one person not do a revival of a musical and have someone bigger or someone plus size? I don't even like using the word plus size. It's 2 words, but I don't care. Plus size. Why? I don't get it. I actually don't get it, because do they think it's not as believable that fat people fall in love because no one's going to fall in love with someone who's got a few more pounds on their body? Is that what it is? Or is it that that when the love interest dresses up and changes their clothes, that a fat person's not going to look as good, so the transition is not going to be as much? I just don't get it. I really don't get it. And it's upsetting to see that we haven't made any gains on this. I feel like even the amateur performances, you can still go, and if you gave me pictures of the ensemble and gave me what show it was going to be, I could tell you 9 times out of 10 who's going to be casting what based on looks. And that's upsetting, because I even do it sometimes. I go on looks sometimes for a role. We all do it, I get it. But we all need to move to a point where we go, we need to just do this on acting, or we need to just do this on the relationship between the 2 actors. But then if you have 2 actors side by side and you cannot pick who is going to be that character, sometimes you have to go, well, to make this not necessarily progressive, but to make this something that is new, something that is fresh, and something that needs to happen, you need to go with the underdog. And yeah, I don't know. I've just ranted there. I'm so sorry.
No, fair. So you're sort of speaking about bringing a sense of social responsibility kind of with you into the casting room, which is interesting, because a lot of people I would predict would disagree with you and would argue that it's not that you should leave sort of politics and well, we call it politics, what actually is people living, but leave that sort of thing out of it. But in my experience, that's always come from somebody with no experience being denied roles because of the way that they in my personal experience. But it's like the idea of social responsibility within theatre is kind of slowly spreading, I think, I hope, as we kind of
I remember that When I went to watch Wicked on Broadway, I remember that there's always uproar about something and someone, but casting directors never have the guts to just do something different, I think, unless it works for them when publicizing the show. So unless it's a cast change and they want to, I don't know, like when Company was done and they gender flipped most of the roles, that was a casting stunt, in my opinion. As much as the show worked, it was a stunt to get more people in. But as bad as that process is, why can't we do that with bigger people? You know? Why can't we have a show where I don't know. It's actually got me mad speaking about it. I don't even know why. But on the flip side, what annoys me heavily is when not only are they not casting bigger people, mainly in films or musical films, they take a bigger role that is normally played by a bigger person and cast a normal sized person in that role and put them in a fat suit. John Travolta in Hairspray is a key example. I don't get it. As someone who has played Edna, I do not understand that. I do not understand that process at all. But again, it is stunt casting. And I know that's not what this is about, but it kind of is for me.
I think it might be an element of like just generally feeling as though, firstly, I mean, in Hairspray's example, obviously, John Travolta is such a big name that it would have been like a good political, good like publicity decision to cast him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's just a point where you're like, you could have cast someone who is plus size in that role, who is probably not finding much work elsewhere because nobody wants fat people in their productions because of internal biases that we all have. You just think, why are you taking that job, a quite well-paid job, away from someone who needs it and giving it to John Travolta, who's already a millionaire, who's already, who is not plus size and shouldn't really be playing that role. Especially in a musical like Hairspray, which is a huge amount about body acceptance. It just makes no sense. No. And then when you think about it, like there's only a couple of roles in shows. I mean, off the top of my head, I can think like, I mean, obviously Hairspray, but then there's, I mean, maybe Veronica and Heathers has been played by Carrie Fletcher, who isn't plus size. She's like.
But the backlash mid-size from that
was huge, yeah.
Was huge, and but then on the flip side, everyone complained about it. Nothing happens, rightfully so. And then during, not going to spoil it, but Dead Girl Walking, when things get frisky on stage, it's probably the best response Carrie will ever receive on stage, because it's that embracing, because people are going, my gosh, like she, I'm not going to speak on behalf of Carrie Hope Fletcher, of course. I wish I knew her, but that's fine. But I don't see Carrie as plus size. I don't like calling Carrie plus size, but as she said, she refers to herself as kind of curvy, and she acknowledges that.
She's.
But I don't know what my train of thought was there, but something to do with like the idea that I think people who are cheering in the audience are not only obviously supporting Carrie as an actress, but they're also going, wow, we've actually taken this song that was very body positive anyway, because they strip on stage, but we've taken it to a new level because we've got someone who wouldn't traditionally be cast as Veronica in the role, and it's still getting the same response, if not better. And yeah,
it was really good. I was really pleased when I saw her cast as Veronica, actually, because I thought, I was like, that's a really sort of move in the right direction, because Veronica's such an iconic character and so many people want to play her, and so many people, I mean, myself included, I'd love to play Veronica. So it's one of the things that seeing Carrie Fletcher play her, and play her really well to a great response, was just kind of heartwarming for me. It was something that I remember watching a bootleg of it, and just thinking like, no, and just thinking like, this
shut
is
down from that comment.
from me being I watched it. No, I paid for it. I did pay for it. Yeah. But it's funny that she initially got so much backlash from people who hadn't even seen her perform, just because of the way that she looked. And then once I mean, what I saw of it was that once critics saw the show and were like, "This is fantastic. This is a great interpretation of Heather's," suddenly that all stopped. But it was only once she had proven that she was one of the best people to play that role that she was allowed to have that sort of positive feedback.
I think the question now is, obviously, unless I'm not clued up, I know they're doing a tour and I know that she's not attached to it, but I don't think they've cast Veronica. Now, I'd be going as a casting director. Carrie worked well. So let's not go back to the original roots of casting Veronica and let's give someone else a chance, whether that's to do with, again, being a curvaceous woman, or whether it's to do with race and ethnicity, whether it's to do with height, anything like that. That's what we need to do now, because they've made that step. They had all the backlash, which didn't need to be there, because everyone knows that Carrie is a strong lead and she was going to smash the role, whatever size or whatever anyone says about how curvy she is. But that's what I'd be doing now. I'd now be going, well, let's not go back to the same old routes, and just because that was a publicity stunt, which it wasn't. Well, it was more a publicity stunt because Carrie was attached to it. But anyway, I keep talking about publicity stunts, but I won't go there because that's not what it's about. But yeah, I just think that I don't know if this is internal bias on my behalf, but I think that it's, let me try and phrase this the best way. I feel like, although we're nowhere near there for female originated roles in terms of plus size, because most of the time that a plus size person is cast, they're usually, in my eyes, just curvy. They're not plus size, and they're a different kind of shape. And I know we've personally had that conversation about different shapes and how like models are used in certain ways and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think this is like, I'm honest, I think this could be just me, but I can't see recently any male romantic leads being changed to bigger men. I can name a few for women, but I can't for men. And I don't get it. Like, there's obviously, if we were to look at the history of musical theatre, like specifically, obviously there are more male leads, and that's changing now, which is a good new generation of shows coming in, which is really positive. But will there be a fat Dear Evan Hansen? No. Will there be a fat Jamie New? No, there won't. What about Jean Valjean? Probably not, you know?
Yeah.
And I just think that there's just so, like, to just put an actor on a pedestal because they are the right size for the role is just archaic behavior and archaic thinking that doesn't need to happen. Because I know people who are curvy. I'm not talking about myself, obviously, because I'm not going to blow my own trumpet just yet. But I know that there are people who maybe bigger than the average person, who could smash those roles out of the park, but they'll never be considered because of the size shirt they wear or the size skirt they wear. You know, it's just like, it's so frustrating because I cannot see a way out of this until we start making it so every role can be played by any size person. And that's not going to happen. And I know that, because then audition processes would go on for months and months, even years, because if they wanted to be absolutely transparent about the casting process, it would take ages to get to that point. And I get that. I just want to be able to see, I want to go to the theatre, have a cheer at the fact that someone who may or may not look like me, or is at least not the typical casting choice in terms of size, and come away going, well, that hasn't changed the show at all. Maybe it's changed it for me because I'm seeing myself partially portrayed on stage, but it hasn't changed the concept of the story. It hasn't changed the romantic element of the story. And unless there is like comments in the script about it, I don't know why we should be looking at weight or size for it. You know?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. It's frustrating to see weight put before talent, really.
Yeah, that's it.
That's the bottom line, I think, is that it's sort of like, it doesn't matter how talented you can be, there will still be people who will see your weight first and not really consider you as a person beyond that, which is really frustrating. To the end of the time, but if you want to finish up.
Yeah, I'll just say, like, I've been told that I don't look the part. I hate that phrase, because what is the part? Unless you're going through the script with a fine tooth comb to find every detail of the script, if it has to be the exact hair color, if it has to be this, if it has to be that, if they have to be the exact weight, why don't I look the part? If you're using that as an excuse because you don't think I can act or sing the part, tell me, because I won't care. But I hate it more when you say to me, I can't be that part because I don't look like I could fall in love with someone. You know? That's what that's the crux of it. That's what is being said there. You're saying that I have not got the ability to fall in love with a beautiful lady or man. It'll be a man with me, but like, well, yeah, kind of a given. We'll get into that another day. But yeah, why? I want to know why, and if anyone has any answers, please tell me. You know?
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
No. No, thank you for talking. That's yeah, I mean, a lot of good points that I feel like we had already talked quite a lot about them, but hopefully this workshop will have been enlightening to some people, possibly, like, hopefully even more so to sort of straight size people than plus size people, in my opinion, because it's not going to be necessarily plus size people who will be making most of the casting decisions. So yeah, I suppose on that level, I think we'll just finish up. But thank you very much for taking the time to talk.
Thank you for letting me rant.
No
I think it's important to rant.
Rants are good for the soul, I feel. Yeah, okay, fab. Thank you so much for talking. And then I'll see you in a bit. Bye.
See you later. Bye.